Morning. My name is Brian Noller. I'm the director of Northland Career Center. I'm also a member of the Northland Education and Business Alliance, or NEBA. NEBA is a network of education and business organizations in Clay and Platte Counties whose vision is to promote and provide business-driven educational opportunities for you, our next generation of business leaders. I will be your host during this session, but we have another NEBA member, Courtney Reyes, business co-chair, who'll be working in the background. And she will assist me in hosting this event. So just a few quick notes before we introduce our guest speaker for the session. This session will run for approximately 40 minutes with a hard stop at 9:40. Our industry experts will begin sharing their professional history and insight. We want you to feel very comfortable, like this is a conversation. At the bottom of your screen, you should see an option to use the Q&A feature. We encourage you to use that space to post any questions you might have at any point in the session. We may not be able to get to them all, but we'll do our best. When this session ends, you'll be asked to take a very short survey. Please give us feedback on the event so we can get better at hosting things like this in the future. Last but not least, this session will be recorded and available on NEBA's YouTube channel in the near future. So let's go ahead and get started. And we'll start with Cassidey. You're on the work, or actually, I'll have Courtney introduce herself first. Go ahead, Courtney, as one of our co-hosts here.
Hi, I'm Courtney Reyes. I'm the Director of Government Affairs and Workforce Development with the Home Builders Association of Greater Kansas City. I'm also your NEBA co-chair.
Cassidey.
Hey everybody, my name is Cassidey Collins and I am the Program Manager of School-Based Integrated Services with Synergy Services.
Sean.
Good morning. My name is Sean McNabb. I am the Business and Community Liaison for the Excelsior Springs Job Corps Center.
And Dana.
And I am Dana Combs. I am the owner and operator of Best Life Therapy KC.
Okay. And so Dana, we'll start with you. Tell us, let's start by just giving the audience a little bit of background about how you got to the current positions you're at and some of your pathways or opportunities along the way. So we'll start with Dana.
Okay. Well, I actually started my career as an elementary school teacher and taught everything from 2nd to 5th grade. That was loads of fun. And then I decided to go back to school and get my master's in school counseling. And so after doing an internship part of my internship at the high school level, I really found I love the older kids. So I ended up working as a high school counselor for the last 15 years. And then a year ago, I decided to go ahead and get my LPC. So I did that and started my therapy practice with my partner, Megan Mallums. And so we run Best Life Therapy KC, and we work primarily with children and adolescents utilizing play therapy.
Okay. All right, thank you. Let's have Sean go next.
I graduated from the University of Missouri with a degree in journalism, and I was an editor for about 3 years in Clay County. And I was looking for something a little bit new and more adventurous. And so I started working for communications here at the Excelsior Springs Job Corps Center, helping youth with barriers to the workforce.
Thank you, Sean. How about Cassidey?
So for about 10 years now, I've been providing prevention-related services to children and youth in school settings through partnerships with school districts and nonprofit agencies. So I've been with 3 different agencies in the last 10 years, but started in that direct service work as an outreach specialist, going into schools and meeting children one-on-one, talking about coping skills, life skills, providing parenting classes. And then I went to another agency and became the manager of their prevention program, which focused on comprehensive sexual health and dating violence prevention. And then I moved back to Kansas City and started my job at Synergy. So I've been with Synergy the last 4 years. And I'm the program manager of school-based services. So we provide therapy, behavior support intervention, and then resiliency services, which are mindfulness, coping skills, social emotional learning to schools in Jackson, Clay, and Platte counties. So my bachelor's degree is in child and family services, and then I have my master's degree in child and youth development.
Thanks, Cassidey. I lost my script there for a second. I was going to give a shout out to Dana. Dana was my partner I'm Northland Career Center Director. Dana, when she worked at Liberty North, was a great partner to NCC. So I wanted to make sure I said that, Dana. I just couldn't find my script there for a second. So I want to make sure I found that. So we're going to start back with Cassidey and we'll work our way backwards. So Cassidey, tell me what a normal day looks like for you at Synergy Services.
Sure. As a program manager, my days include various things, but a lot of supervision of our middle management staff. So I have 5 assistant managers underneath me. So I give them direct supervision. We, help if anybody is in crisis or if there's something going on at one of our partner schools. But I focus on program implementation, design, quality improvement, and then leadership development. I do obviously data and narrative reports. I'm in charge of our program budget. I'm in charge of training my team, leading various committees within my agency, attending various community coalitions. And then I also get to do training and consultation to school faculty and other community organizations. So I wear a lot of hats in my role.
Thanks, Cassidey. What about you, Sean? What does a typical day look like for you
I'm going to go ahead and follow up with wearing lots of different hats. I do different things based on what time of year it is, but right now we've been working on the business engagement plan, which is something that's my responsibility to produce annually. I also communicate with a lot of our business partners and community partners. I facilitate meetings for partnership. I also facilitate meetings here on center. I do some trainings. I write our stories. Any positive story that we send out to our partners is something that I've put together, and we do a quarterly newsletter. And that's just a few things that I do on a regular basis.
Thanks, Sean. What about you, Dana?
Well, I'm currently working 2 jobs right now. So I'm actually still a high school counselor. So I'm doing that during the day at Park Hill South. And so I see clients in the evening. So I'm doing that part-time until my hopeful soon retirement when I'll be able to see clients full-time. So at the school level, my day really just looks like, so for example, I guess today started with a meeting with the team. And then after that, usually seeing kids mostly for academic planning. We see every single kid and work on their 4-year plan. That's one of the things I love about high school counseling is that we do kind of a variety of things. So all the way from academic planning to some of that social emotional stuff. So later on today, who knows what might happen? Could be kid comes in crying or, whatever. And then we're working on just hopefully getting them back to a space where they can get back to class. Then after my day here, I go to my office is in Gladstone. And so I go there and I see clients. And so the evening usually runs from starting with a 4 o'clock client to 5 o'clock and a 6 o'clock. So I usually see 3 clients a couple of days a week, 2 nights a week, 3 clients each. And so that ranges, it just depends on the age. So for example, last night I saw a 7-year-old. I did a little family therapy session with a 7-year-old. I saw a 9-year-old and then another 7-year-old. So that was my evening last night.
Wow. Well, thank you, ladies. One of the things I would, on this next question, it says, what is the most essential or transferable skills needed in the profession? So if you're speaking to a high school audience or even maybe some middle school students, as they start thinking about what skills needed for these type of careers, what advice would you offer those students thinking this careers? We'll go back to Dana again. We'll work right back.
I would say just first off, just working, especially with the social, emotional, the mental health aspect of the job, you really need to just have a love for listening, talking, helping. I think, having that empathy, to be able to relate to your your students if it's in the school setting, or even your clients if it's in a therapeutic setting. So I think honestly, just a care and concern for helping others. That'd be kind of the main thing.
Thanks, Dana. Sean, what about you?
There are a few traits that I think would be really important. I think being able to get along with people is really important because my role is very much involved in communication. So I'd say charisma, confidence is important because sometimes you're going into a room with strangers trying to build partnerships. You're also going to want to be really organized because there are a lot of different hats that we were talking about before. And if you're not organized, then something might slip through the cracks. There's creative thinking involved, resilience. And then I also want to highlight that we work with a lot of students that come from very different backgrounds. And so being a trusted adult is really important in this role at Job Corps specifically. If you're going to be working with students that come from a variety of different backgrounds, and it's important that you understand that you don't necessarily know what's going on in their mind and that you can handle situations appropriately instead of making the situation worse.
Cassidey, I'll have you wrap us up on this question.
Yeah, well, I agree with the other two panelists as well. I'm trying to think of some other things to add. Definitely flexibility. Like we said, there is many different hats, many different duties that we do in social service type work. So flexibility, I think being an independent worker, being able to hold yourself accountable to some independent work styles, and when you are kind of out and about and doing your own thing, but really coming back to that team approach and being able to be collaborative. I think compassionate for the people or clients that you're serving or working toward serving. And then I think as far as like being a manager or running a program in like a nonprofit, I think about just the ability to have vision and think long-term about what you're trying to accomplish and the outcomes you want for your program. And then I also think about vulnerability and being able to admit when we mess up, when we make mistakes, and be always be active in being willing to learn.
Great. So we'll wrap back around with Cassie on this next one. What are what courses, certifications, or other degrees do you need to be in a position where you feel your position?
Yeah. So I'll kind of talk holistically about Synergy as a nonprofit agency who serves children, families, and youth. Many of our staff have degrees in human development and family science, social work, education, psychology, or have their clinical license. But we have a lot of positions that also work or look for work experience, right, with the specific population that we're serving. So I think clinical positions or leadership positions do require at least a bachelor's degree and then licensure. But there are many positions within a large agency that can have high school degrees and look for some of that like hands-on experience.
Okay. Sean, what about you?
For the role that I'm in right now, I'm pretty sure a bachelor's degree is required, but I'm not entirely confident that it has to be in communications. I will say that the communications realm of employment is pretty flexible when it comes to education, and depending on what it is that you're looking to do, you may only need a high school degree, but for more opportunities for success, I would say a bachelor's degree in some sort of communications field.
And Dana?
To be a school counselor, you would need a master's in school counseling. You don't have to have been in education or be a teacher, although that for me, that was helpful. It was nice just knowing the area of education and what the school setting is like. So, because I have a bachelor's in elementary education. To practice, though, you do need your LPC or an LCSW. So as a counselor, I had the opportunity while I was in the master's program getting my degree to get my LPC, and I didn't do it at the time, and I really regretted that. And so I wish I would have done that and gotten it at the time. I didn't think I was ever going to go into private practice. So I ended up doing that years later. So if you're going into school counseling, I would suggest doing it all at the same time, just because you never know what the future is going to hold. So that said, I did have to back up and take a class, and then I had to, I got my provisional LPC, and then just recently got my full LPC. And so that allows you to be able to practice in the private practice setting. And then I'm currently working on my RPT. So for, if you're wanting to work with children, I would strongly encourage learning a lot about play therapy. And so that has been just so fun and so exciting for me right now. And so I actually finished all the coursework for play therapy, and now I'll have my RPT hopefully by the end of March when I submit my application.
And you said, I kind of gathered from that the PT of the RPT is play therapy. What's the R stand for?
Oh, I'm sorry, registered play therapist.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Well, thank you for calling it out.
Mm-hmm.
So this next question may apply, may not, but is there opportunities within your industry for promotion, or we'll say for growth, business growth? And so what would these, and you may have explained this real well just a second ago, Dana, opportunities require additional training, certifications, or education? So we'll start with Dana and we'll work our way back.
In the school setting, and it just depends on where you are, there are opportunities for professional development. So most schools do have funds available for different professional development. I was actually able to get, when I was working in Liberty, I was able to have the district pay for actually some of my play therapy classes. So that was because it helped me in both settings. It helped me actually at the high school level and obviously for my private practice. I'm trying to think of where else I was going to go with that, but.
Well, and you mentioned the opportunities as you're in your evening role as a working with that. You said registered play therapist. So do you feel like that having those other credentials allow you to expand your business or expand your opportunities?
Yes. So just some things. So my partner and I, we work a lot together. Talking about where we want to go with our practice. And so she's actually working full time. I'm only working part time right now, but for most of you maybe even know that a lot of therapists right now are really full. So we are full and we have a wait list and all of that. And that's great. I wish we didn't have a wait list, wish we could take everybody. But some other things we're looking at are actually doing some professional development for other therapists around town and maybe even running some classes and coursework and getting certified to do that.
Okay, great. Okay, Sean, what about growth or promotional opportunities within your organization or your career?
In my organization, I think that there's a lot of opportunity. There is a whole administration staff team here. And so if I spend more time here, then I would have an opportunity to move up here at the Job Corps. As for communications in general, there are lots of different things that experience can bring you. And some of those areas are being on part of a marketing team or the head of a marketing team somewhere. You could go into human resources, and you could also go into public relations. So experience is really the name of the game when it comes to communication. So once you get into a communications job, the longer you stay there, the better off you'll be.
Thanks, Sean. What about you, Cassidey?
Yeah, so at larger agencies in the nonprofit sector, I think there's always opportunity for promotion. I think within smaller agencies, promotions or leadership positions don't become as available as often, but opportunity is always there depending on the services that an agency provides, the funding that they have, and then the potential program growth. Many of the program manager or director level positions do require master's degrees, and they would be looking for management experience in addition to that previous direct care work with clients. But luckily, I know at Synergy, we always have professional development and training available for our staff. So even if it's not a promotion, there's always the opportunity just for personal growth, professional growth in areas that our staff are interested in. And then there's so many different positions and different programs. So although it may not be a promotion, there's different types of work you can do to build your skills and find out, kind of exactly what you're interested in.
Okay, thanks everyone. The next question is going to be a little bit about our challenges the last couple of years. So how has the pandemic really challenged you in your roles and in your organizations to do things differently, and how have you handled those challenges? We'll start with Cassidey.
Okay. Yeah, what a challenge the last couple of years have been. I think one of the biggest things we learned is how to provide virtual services. We started doing all of our forms and like client files and consents electronically, which is something that we wanted to do, and the pandemic really pushed us to move forward with that. So providing virtual service, I think again, just really getting to use our flexible thinking and how we provide service to clients. I feel like everybody kind of went all hands on deck to keep the doors open. At Synergy, we have 24/7 programming, we have residential facilities, and so we had to really work as a team to make sure nothing shut down and that the services that our clients needed still happened. And then as a program manager with a school-based program, that has absolutely been a challenge. We had to provide services, again, virtually to students, work really closely with teachers and administration to make sure services still happened when students were attending school virtually. And then we've also had to do a lot of support for not only faculty and teachers and counselors that we work with as community partners, but also support for our own staff in-house. And everybody is just at capacity and really stressed. And so we've had to get creative about how we support each other and the opportunities we provide, for still professional development and growth, but also that self-care piece of staff that's so important.
Wow, thanks, Cassidey. Sean, what about at Job Corps in terms of pandemic support and challenges?
We have had a lot of challenges, and it's been a snowball effect. So when we were first hit with COVID, we sent our students home to learn virtually, and we paused our enrollment. And so that's resulted in a very long waiting list. Our program is unique and successful because it's hands-on. And so having our students learn virtually has been really difficult. It's been difficult for us, and it's been really difficult for them. We started bringing them back, but the environment here is so different than it used to be. Our students used to be able to wander more and have a little more physical freedom. And now it's masking and social distancing. We have to answer to the Department of Labor and our corporate agency that's contracted to run the center. And so there's a lot of things that make it harder on them. We focus a lot on building up their resilience. And like this week, we're doing Kindness Week and everybody's writing cards to the students here. But because we had to pause our enrollment and because our students are being delayed in their training, we also are not producing as many graduates as we would normally. And so we're not being able to contribute to the workforce like we have in the past. It's all just relative. So as soon as we're able to get the world running in a more efficient way, then things will go back to some sort of normal.
And Sean, I would comment as a career center or vocational school director that I feel your pain. We've had some challenges, especially in March 2020 through May 2020 was very difficult to do online instruction for vocational hands-on things. So I completely understand. So Dana, what about you in terms of your two roles? How has it affected not only school, but also with your other position?
Yeah, as a school counselor, we are in charge of a lot of programming. And so those things are big events in the buildings and that kind of thing. So we did also have to get very creative in doing those events virtually, which unfortunately, I feel like obviously the challenge is getting parents and students to attend a virtual event that is, like a college fair and things like that in person makes more sense. So I think over the last couple of years, unfortunately, I feel like our kids have really missed out on a lot of that information and those experiences and things like that. Also with the virtual learning in general, a lot of students, as you know, really struggled with virtual school and the virtual learning and then back to the hybrid and all of that. So we're now, as counselors, we're in charge of checking to make sure that our seniors are going to graduate. And unfortunately, what we're seeing is many kids that are credit deficient. And so now we're trying to find ways to get these kids to graduate. So that's been difficult and scary. I think as far as the private practice, when my partner and I started, we actually just started, a lot of people were going to teletherapy and going virtual. We actually did not. And parents were okay with that. I mean, when you have young kids, it's just way too hard with a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old to do teletherapy. And honestly, I just didn't want to tackle that. Especially starting out in private practice, you just really need to see kids. I mean, adolescents are a little bit different if they're talkers. And so teletherapy wasn't so bad. So we started off seeing kids in person, and we just made sure we put protocols in place where we wore masks. We made sure we cleaned the toys and sprayed everything down in between clients, and just made sure that we assured parents that we were cleaning in between for those people who were nervous about that.
Oops, my microphone was off, sorry. If you are, as a reminder, if you're online watching and you want to ask a question, please put in the Q&A section and Courtney will ask that question. The next one, I want all of you, and I'll start with Dana, and we can feel your passion. We really feel your passion what you do, but you get a chance here to go answer a simple question is like, what do you love about what you do? So tell us a little bit about that, Dana. What do you love about what you do?
My passion, what I have decided, especially since I've been doing school counseling for the last 15 years, is I really, really love the social emotional part of things. I love working with kids. I don't like the fact that kids are struggling, but they are. And so, but that's really my passion, is really just trying to help kids learn some resiliency and learn those grounding techniques, learn some coping skills. That's what I love. And that's why I decided to go ahead and get my LPC and go into private practice, because that's ultimately what I would like to do full time.
Thanks, Dana. What about you, Sean? What do you really love about what you do in your role?
I would have to say the impact that we're having. A lot of the success stories that I write from the students that have graduated our program talk about how much of an impact it's had on their life. Some of these students are just coming here because it's a good opportunity, but there are other students that are coming here because it's the only opportunity that they have. And knowing that this is the opportunity that they have access to and the impact that it has on their future is really rewarding.
Thank you. Cassie, what about you? What do you really love about what you do?
Yeah, I mean, I do love that I get to wear so many different hats. Every day looks a little bit different in my role. My position isn't stagnant. I get to be creative. I get to be a leader. I get to, promote our agency and talk about all the wonderful services we provide, and so much more. But really, when I think about my program, it breaks down those barriers for people to have access to services, and the impact, although a really challenging last couple of years. We worked with over 10,000 students in 2021 in my program. And it's just, we are able to reach so far and wide in the KC metro area, which is great. And then I think it also comes down to loving the mission of my program and the mission and vision of my agency. For me, it's always been really important to work for an agency that aligns with my own values. And so to get to feel supported at work and know that holistically my agency is providing services that I believe in, and our motivation is in the right place and our passion is there. I love being able to work, somewhere that aligns with my values.
Okay. And so we'll start again with you, Cassidey, with this last kind of two-part question. What is the most challenging thing, minus the pandemic? We'll put that, we've already talked about that. So most challenging thing you work with, but maybe also the most rewarding in the same sense. So how would you sum that up in a challenging but rewarding opportunities?
Okay. With nonprofit work, I think a challenge is always funding. The stress of, losing a position or losing programming, As a manager right now, my biggest challenge has been staffing or hiring. The hiring climate is really difficult, although I think we're seeing some change in the right direction. But really, I also think about like the secondary trauma that folks who provide direct services to clients, especially clients who are, in crisis or are from underrepresented populations. That's really tough. As helpers, we tend to take work home with us. And so that balance of work and life and that self-care aspect is really important. The most, rewarding, I think, is implementing change. Providing services to people who couldn't otherwise access those supports or resources. Seeing those like light bulb moments when you work with kids and young people, and we know that we may not see that like impact day to day, hour to hour, but the work that we do does make that lasting impact that we know we see years in the future. And so that's always really exciting and rewarding.
Thank you. Sean, the most challenging and rewarding part of your role?
So the most challenging part of my role right now is definitely maintaining strong partnerships when we don't have graduates to supply our employer partners, and then also keeping our students engaged, because we're still having to have students learn virtually in different circumstances, and we have residential and non-residential, and so we have to keep those groups of students separate. It's all very difficult. But I would say that the most rewarding part is whenever I'm talking to a student, they're like, I got a job, and they're finishing up their program, and it's hard to keep them engaged all the time and have them really buy in to the program until they get that moment where it's like, yeah, I'm going to be leaving the state. I'm going to be working on rail cars, or I'm going to be a CNA at the local hospital. So it's very rewarding.
Okay. Hey, Dana, what about you? Most challenging, most rewarding?
I think the most challenging, I would say, especially at the school setting, is when you are working with a kid who you just know is just in pain and really, really struggling. And there are barriers that maybe, parents can't afford to get them outside services, or maybe parents don't believe in mental health help and that kind of thing. And so that's really hard. It's really hard to watch those kids really hurt and struggle when you care and you kind of are knowing what they need. And obviously in a school setting, we can't, we're not equipped to provide those therapeutic services that they may need. But that said, on the flip side, I will say on the private practice side of things, it is so rewarding to, number one, see parents who, bring their kids to therapy, and they're just like, I just want you to help my kid. They just are so grateful. And when you kind of work with this kid in that setting, and then they finish, they kind of graduate from therapy, and just seeing the look on parents' face, it's just so rewarding to see that this kid has just made such great changes, has learned how to cope, learned a lot, during that time that I've spent with them. And then the parents to just be so grateful about that. That's super rewarding.
Well, that's really, and that wraps up all my questions, but it's really, really exciting from my lens to hear what, all of you do and how passionate you are about helping people. Because as a director of Northland Career Center, that's one of the things I love what I do too. I get to help kids find their passions, and you're helping them, whatever their needs are, find a better path or find success. And that's super exciting. And so thank you again. I'm going to turn it over to Courtney, but thank you on my behalf for everything you do and for being with us this morning. So Courtney, I turn it over to you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you ladies so much for today. My last kind of question for each of you is, thinking about your path to, where you started to where you are now and how you got there. If there are, youth or kiddos that are about to graduate that are looking to get into your field, what advice would you give them? What transferable skills or methods would you advise to kind of allow them to get into those roles a little bit easier. Sorry, Cassidey, if you want to start.
Oh, sure. My biggest advice is to look at various opportunities for shadowing, for internships, even for part-time employment in the nonprofit sector. That's actually how I started my career. I was a peer mentor at Synergy. So I'm back with the agency that started my passion for this work. And so when I was 16 to 18, I worked as a peer mentor in our youth emergency shelter. And so I think there are always opportunities out there for that type of work or experience that we don't think of. A lot of, part-time work as a teenager, we, work in the restaurant field or retail, but getting that opportunity in that nonprofit setting really helped me understand what I wanted to do, what I wanted to go to college for. And so there's opportunities like that out there for either, work, internship, or just shadowing and coming and touring, a facility, asking our staff about, what they do, how they got there. So yeah, just research and come out and visit is my best advice.
Thanks. Sean, go ahead.
Okay. I would say that a great way to move forward is to believe in yourself and not to get hung up on some of the mistakes that you make, to forgive yourself and just keep pressing forward. I also think that whenever you're working hard to get into a job, not to let yourself be limited, reach for whatever it is that you dream to be. And if you don't think that you're qualified, apply anyway, and they'll decide if they think that you can fit into that role or not. And the worst thing that will happen is that they'll say no. So it doesn't hurt to try.
Go ahead, Dana.
Okay. Well, I would say there's so many different paths to get to this counseling role, whether you're going to school or private practice. So I would just say, work with the college advisor to kind of determine what undergraduate degree you want to focus on. So for example, I studied elementary education, not really knowing I was going to go the counseling route, but that was it was helpful to have that background. But then there are people, who decide to go the social work path. And so they do social work and then get their master's in social work. And that's another great path to follow too. Or, people who study psychology and just, major in psychology and go that route. So I would just say kind of work with an advisor, find the that undergraduate pathway that you feel like is best for you so that you kind of have that background before you actually start your master's work.
I think that's wonderful, just so you can kind of stack on what makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, ladies, we appreciate your time today, so we won't keep you over. There will be a survey after you leave this webinar. So if you could fill that out for us so that we can provide better experiences in the future, we would love that. And thank you to everyone who is attending. And thank you so much to our speakers who took their time today to join us and share their stories and their insight and their professional knowledge. So thank you guys so much. You have a wonderful day, okay? Oh,
Thanks, ladies. Thank you.